Some of the most disturbing things happened long before this age. In fact, most of them disturb the minds of scientists to this day.
What we're trying to do is get a preponderance of evidence together so that we can prove the point that there's ruins all over the planet.
But thanks to the camera, we get to see them. So, let's dive into these 25 rare historical photos that science can't explain. The existence of giants has long been a topic of debate in the world of science. Over time, many people believe that they actually existed or still exist, while some think that they are just a fragment of imagination. Come to think of it, the chances that you would ever run into a giant in your lifetime is actually very low. And honestly, if we judge by the things we see in movies, no one will ever want to bump into a giant. However, against the notion that giants probably do not exist in reality or that they would have a hostile nature even if they do, this image shows a mind-blowing moment. The picture, which was taken in Afghanistan in the early 1900s, shows a group of men in a picture with a giant. According to the aura in this photo, the giant did not seem to be a threat to the people as the movies suggest. Here, we have yet another proof that there might have been more giants in the last age than we can imagine. In this picture, there is hard proof that threw the best scientists into a frenzy for days. A giant finger that must have belonged to an enormous human. While digging deep into the rubbles sometime in the 1900s, some group of guys found this huge mummified finger, which obviously is an object of interest. At the time the picture was taken, the finger looked like it was intentionally preserved from decay, or that it had only stayed a few years after it was chopped off the creature. However, one fact that stands is that it belonged to a giant, and he was definitely taller and bigger than our imaginations. Just as we have seen evidence of mind-boggling giants who have lived on land, there seems to be a world of large sea monsters beneath the waters too, and we just may never know how large they get. In this picture that was taken off the coast of Hook Island, we see a dark sea monster swimming close to the surface. This disturbing creature looked like a tadpole, but how does a tadpole grow up to about 80 feet? Strange, huh? Maybe the only place that would make sense is in a movie like Resident Evil, but here we have one in reality. However, against the fictional idea about giant creatures being dangerous and hostile, the people who had an encounter with this giant tadpole said that it swam towards them and moved away quietly. Maybe they were just lucky, or the hostility thing is only a misconception about giant creatures. Who knows? Apart from giants, other creatures have disturbed the minds of scientists, and aliens are on top of this list. Just like what scientists think of giants, they believe that extraterrestrial creatures such as aliens are just objects of fiction, and even if they exist, they would be a threat to the existence of humans. At least, the movies say so. However, when this 1928 picture, which was taken in Mongolia, made it to the internet, a lot of people seemed to believe that the men in the picture had an encounter with an alien, and they decided to take a picture just so they could freeze the moment. But in contrast, another class of people think that the so-called alien is a human in some weird costume. What do you think? Talking of aliens, this picture captures a moment which raises questions scientists still haven't found answers to. At first glance, the picture may not look like anything to be worried about. However, the story behind it is a fascinating one. During a night search, the searchlights found something really weird happening in the sky, and all the lights pointed at the unknown flying object. Strangely, the picture went viral, and several theories were formed about this strange object in the sky. As expected, many people seem to think that the strange object was a UFO, and that sounds like the most reasonable explanation if you ask me. I mean, looking at the picture, the object in the sky looked more like a spaceship, and the little lights around it just backs up the claim. So, you know what that means. Some aliens came on a short visit to our planet. In a similar scenario, but one that is more crippling this time, some strange moving lights were captured in the night sky. And they do not look like anything we see around. The hovering light even created a spectrum in the picture, and this makes the phenomenon really baffling. Though it happened centuries ago, the strange light which hovered around the Norwegian sky still disturbs the minds of scientists today, and no one seems to have an answer to what it was or what may have caused it. Maybe it's another set of aliens taking a tour of the sky or spying on the Earth in their UFOs. Who knows? Here, we have an image that looks like just one random group picture. However, the star of this show is not the cavalrymen in the picture. Rather, it's the giant tree that stood behind them. Okay, this is what I mean. The picture was taken in 1899, and of course, the enormity of the tree that stood in the background cannot be ignored. However, it gets even more interesting because almost 200 years after that picture was taken, the tree still stands till today. Yep. I bet you find it strange that we have a huge tree, which is about 2,000 years old, standing somewhere in the world right now. The giant tree called the grizzly tree remains a baffling topic in the world of science till today. Talk of a giant that has outlived generations and probably has no plans of falling to an axe anytime soon. The debate about whether aliens are a thing or if life actually exists outside our planet still goes on. However, in the middle of the chaotic arguments about life on the other planets, some astronauts found something on Mars, and this discovery would boggle the minds of scientists for a long time. The picture taken on Mars shows something that looked like a human face, carved out of the ground. Could it be that our friends living on Mars took a tour of the Earth and they decided to build a memorial of what we look like? Yeah, I think that actually makes sense, but scientists do not seem to see the possibilities. They have chosen to debunk this incredible find as just an illusion formed from the camera's perspective, or just a product of lights and shadows. What do you think about this? In a similar scenario, but on Earth this time, two ghost heads were captured by the camera, and the backstory is quite intriguing. In January 1925, two sailors named James Courtney and Michael Meehan lost their lives at sea, but that became the beginning of strange occurrences for their mates. According to them, the ghosts of these two sailors kept going out with them, and they see them swimming after the ship whenever they are on sea. Yeah, I guess that sounds dumb, and no one believed them. So, the sailors decided to take a picture of these ghost heads the next time they appeared, and the photograph had the world in shock. But trust scientists to always have something to say to debunk paranormal claims. The picture still did not make sense to scientists, and they debunked it as mere illusion. However, those who knew the deceased sailors confirmed that the ghost heads looked exactly like them. Some old pictures would make us question the things we know, or at least the things we were told by scientists. Here is an example. They told us that dinosaurs and some other pterodactyls existed millions of years before us, and they went into extinction thousands of years before we existed. So, if that was true, what explanations will scientists have to give for the moment which was captured in this image? The old picture shows some men who went hunting, and they just were lucky to have found something disturbing yet interesting. It was a giant winged animal that does not look like anything we've seen in this age. Could it be that some of the supposedly extinct animals still existed until humans came? If that's the case, then scientists were definitely wrong. At first glance, this picture may not seem like anything out of the ordinary. I mean, it's just an old photo of a door tied with a string, isn't it? Well, you will be shocked to find out that there's more to this ancient picture then meets the eyes. The picture was taken by archaeologists who went on a visit to the ancient Egyptian tombs, and it got the attention of the media when they found out that the tomb had existed for over 3,000 years. Yep, you heard that right. That would mean that the cord had kept the tomb safe for several millennia without wearing out or breaking. How strange is that? I guess this is one of those pictures that make us really doubt some of the things scientists have told us in the past. This looks like just a group photo, and it does not seem like anything we should be concerned about. However, there may be something dark hidden in the black and white walls of this old picture. When you zoom in the face of the guy at the far back, you would find out that he had an extra face behind him. But, just in case you're wondering why that is strange, here is the backstory. The extra face we see behind the guy is the face of a member of the team who passed away 2 days before the picture was taken. The guy named Freddie Jackson lost his life by an air propeller. But according to a claim that would not make any sense in the world of science, his ghost appeared in the group picture 2 days after his death. If having eyes at the back of your head was a real thing, then this guy named Edward Mordrake took it personally. The picture, which was taken in December 1895, now stands as the only evidence that there once lived a man who had an extra face at the back of his head. Though the face was called his devil twin, scientists proved that they were not actually conjoined twins, and that was all that they had to say about his strange appearance. However, Edward agreed that the face was indeed a devil because it always did the exact opposite of what he did. For example, when Edward cried, the face would smile or sneer, and when he tried to sleep, the face would keep whispering terrible things to me. At the end, his devil twin tormented him so much that had to take his own life at 23, still without any answers from scientists about his weird case. While some pictures capture moments that do not make sense in the world of science, some capture things that the average human mind cannot fathom. So, science aside, some moments are just not logical, and this is one of them. If cameras did not exist in ancient times, I bet we all would find it hard to believe that an elephant was found lounging on top of a tree, in a bird's nest even. The first concern would be how the elephant climbed up to the top of a tree, and the next one will be the business an elephant has with a bird's nest. In all, nothing about this picture seems to make sense, and if scientists do not have an explanation to it, then you can be sure that the average man does not have one either. This picture captures a horror moment in a church, and it had the internet buzzing and going wild. An old lady goes to the church to pray, but unknown to her, there was a strange figure sitting behind her. The white ghost-like figure sat behind her like it was a part of the prayer session, but according to the lady, she was alone in the church and did not see anyone until she was the figure in her picture. At first, it seemed like a really strange thing to have happened during a church prayer session. However, after seeing the picture, the priest had something positive to say about the weird occurrence. In his words, the figure in the picture is a healing spirit that visited the church during prayer sessions, and its presence only meant that the lady's prayers were answered. Well, whether he made sense or not, he won the heart of people with his explanation. In another ghost story, this picture taken by Skybell Corbett in 1891 shows an ancient library space that looks empty, but when you take a closer look at the picture, you will find out that there is more to it. On the big chair, you see the upper body of a ghost-like figure, and that was such a strange find for the photographer, who was sure that he captured an empty room. When he showed the picture to the daughters of the house, they claimed that the ghost-like appearance had a striking resemblance to their deceased father. At the end of the day, it became obvious that their father's ghost was probably still sitting at his favorite place in the house. Or maybe he only found out about the photo shoot and came to say, "Hello." There are so many natural phenomena that our eyes have seen, and scientists have done their best to explain many of them. However, there are just some times when Mother Nature decides to daze us with some unexplainable drama. And this picture right here captures one of those dramatic moments in nature. The picture shows a mind-blowing moment when lightning struck, and there was a glowing light around the lighting. Looking at this amazing sight, you would want to give Mother Nature some flowers for being such an artist. However, scientists seem to think that this moment which was captured wasn't solely the work of nature. Tell us what you think about this incredible moment in the comments. Pictures that were taken during the assassination of the U.S. President John F. Kennedy in 1963 have become a topic of debate till today. This is because some of them capture a strange lady whose aura and appearance calls for questions. The old lady, who is now widely called the Babushka Lady, was seen holding a camera, and many people believed that she must have photographed the exact moment of the assassination. Other pictures also show that she kept walking away from the scene even when other people were looking for cover. This further heightened the tension as questions about who this lady kept rising. But this is the most bizarre part of the whole story. From the moment she walked away from the scene of the assassination, no one could boast of knowing who she was, where she came from, or where she went. Not even the best researchers in the United States. Could she have been a time traveler who came right on time to capture the assassination? Or was she some extraterrestrial being? The picture taken by the elevator cam became the last moment of the lady called Elisa Lam, even if she probably didn't have an idea. According to reports, Elisa lodged in the hotel, and on this day, the camera captured her rushing into the elevator like she was running away from danger. Her body language in the elevator also showed that she was probably running away from something. However, the whole thing didn't make sense until a few days later, when the hotel customers started complaining about the taste of the water. And when the hotel management opened the tank, they found Elisa's body already decaying. Her heartbreaking story remains a mystery till today, and no one really has an explanation for it. All we know is that she was last seen stepping out of the elevator. Another heartbreaking picture captured during the volcanic eruption in Armero, Colombia, shows how unpredictable life can be, but it also shows the power of resilience. With a 12-year-old Omaira Sanchez being the star of this story, the picture captured her in the volcanic mud where she was stuck for over 60 hours, hoping that she would make it. The fact that she remained hopeful for almost 3 days, even as the heat of the mud wiped away over 20,000 people in 2 hours, made this picture of her last moments a huge part of history. Though she did not make it in the end, this heartbreaking image of hers wrote her name on the sands of time. This picture captures an interesting coexistence of a piano and a tree. The tree seems to be growing through a piano, and it's really hard to tell why that is. Or maybe not. It could be that the piano had been there for a long time before the tree started going, and it just found its way through it. I guess that makes sense, but that still doesn't erase the fact that this picture would remain one of the strangest in history. I think America's attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki should not be news to anyone. But who would have thought that leaving your footprints on the sands of time could look heartbreaking in some cases? This picture looks like a shadow, but it's actually far from it. The photo, which was taken after the nuclear attack in Hiroshima, shows the last moment of a man. It's just testament to how the people of Hiroshima were living their normal lives before the unexpected attack that wiped them out in seconds. The shadow-like figure on the ground is the remains of a man who was scorched to death in the twinkling of an eye. In a tale of survival, here is a photo of Julian Kupska, a 17-year-old German girl who found herself in the Amazon jungle in the 1970s. Julian was on the plane with her mother when the plane suddenly got struck by a lightning bolt. The plane exploded, and she was sucked out with her seatbelt on her. After succumbing to gravity for over 2 miles, she landed in the Amazon jungle with wounds all over her body. According to her, she wandered in the jungle for 10 days until she found some fishermen who helped her find her way back home. Everyone knows the story of the greatest shipwreck in history, the Titanic shipwreck, which happened in 1912. This photo, which was captured on the 12th of April 1912, is one of the last known pictures of the Titanic before tragedy struck 2 days later. On the night of 14th April 1912, the Titanic hit a huge iceberg, and thousands of people perished in it. But thanks to this historical picture, we probably wouldn't have known what the ship looked like. And, if it counts for something, the guys on the boat can boast of being the last set of people to ever set their eyes on the great ship. This picture shows a guy that looks like a statue, but before you jump into conclusion, it tells a heartbreaking story. Captured during the World War, the picture shows a soldier who was frozen by the enemy troop after he had lost his life. As a way of showing their triumph, the enemy camp had a habit of making the deceased soldiers stand on their feet so that they could freeze in the snow until they looked like a statue, just like him. This is where we come to the end of this topic. What do you think about the moments that were captured in these photos? Let us know your thoughts about this topic in the comments.